everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com, and you know what time it is. It's time to talk about AEW Dynamite. And obviously this is a pretty big show. It's the first show after the very positively received Full Gear 2020 pay-per-view. But how would AEW follow it up? And how good was last night's Dynamite? There's only one way to find out, and that is by assigning each individual segment a lovely individual grade. That's right, it's time for AEW Dynamite Graded. And before we hit that intro, this show was quite crazy. It was off the rails. Anyway, now that I've pointed that out, AEW Dynamite, AEW Graded. Let's go. Hit the intro now. So we start the show with Taz coming out to say a few words ahead of the first match between Brian Cage and Matt Sydal. Taz cuts a promo on Darby Allin, sat way up in the stands once again, but this time with the lovely TNT Championship on his shoulder. Taz also calls out Cody and says, "Cody, stay out of our business, yeah?" And then we're straight into the match, and Matt Sydal comes out and tries to match Brian Cage in terms of power, because he's really silly. But a little bit later on, Brian Cage goes for his freakish, incredibly agile Hurricane Rana for a man of his size, and Sydal counters that with a power move of his own, catching him and nailing him with a power bomb. It's bloody Opposites Day. And Veterans Day as well, thank you for your service. And towards the end of the match, this really kicks into a higher gear. We get an insane counter from Sydal. He counters the drill claw by kind of popping out as Cage tries to lift him up into like a jumping Hurricane Rana for a very near fall. It's a wonderful spot. But we get maybe an even more impressive spot to end the match as Sydal goes up to the top rope, leaps off, and Cage catches him in the vertical suplex position and nails him with the drill claw, and that's enough for the victory. Ricky Starks gets on the mic afterwards and puts over Cage and himself, just Team Taz in general, and says, "We're so good, our records are so good, you have to know that the TNT Championship is next." And I'm thinking, is that for him or for Cage or both? Are they both gunning for it? I'm not quite certain. Starks ends the promo by going, "Hit it!" and nothing plays. He's just walking off and he hit it. Dead silence. This opening match gets an A- grade from me. For the most part, it was kind of a standard good wrestling match, but then those couple of really impressive spots at the end really tipped it over the edge for me. It gets into the A bracket, and I'm going to give it an A-. Nice start to the show. Next up, who should enter the arena but Cody Rhodes with his 3 intros. Here he comes. He gets in the ring and gets on the mic and basically once again puts over Darby Allin and congratulates him for beating him for the title at Full Gear. But Cody says that himself and Arn Anderson will not be pursuing a rematch at this time because he's got another loss on his record that he wants to avenge, and he goes, "We want MJF." But as he's speaking, Cody is interrupted by somebody who comes out from the back and gets in the ring and takes the mic from him. And she introduces herself as Jade Cargill. She says that she's been waiting in the wings for ages, she's been sitting on the sidelines, and now she wants to take over. That sort of promo. And I'm thinking, okay, this is quite an interesting way of going about things. And then everything goes just insane, and I feel like I'm on something watching that. This segment's so weird. First of all, Cargill says, "Cody, you've referred to yourself as a giant killer in the past. Well, let me tell you, there is nothing giant about you." Oh, willies. Cargill kind of rambles for a bit. This isn't the tightest promo in the world. You can tell that she might be a little bit inexperienced on the mic, but she gets her point across generally, and she says, "Cody, I know a real giant, and you want to be careful that your words don't wake him." And she heads up to the ramp and she says, "Oh, by the way, that giant's name," and I'm like, come on, who is it? Who's it going to be? And she goes, "Is Shaq." And I'm like, what? And commentary confirm this and go like, does she mean Shaquille O'Neal? And I'm like, are you, what? Shaquille O'Neal? What's going on? Before we've got time to even really digest that, here comes Brandy out from the back because this woman's just been really talking down to her husband, and Brandy is just full of fire and fury. Brandy's all like, "Who told you it was open mic night tonight, bitch?" And just, oh my god, she just cuts this insane promo on Jade Cargill. To be fair to Brandy, I think it's her best promo ever. I think this is the best promo I've ever seen from Brandy Rhodes. I'm not even going to try and do it justice. Watch it for yourselves. She says a lot. There are a lot of zingers in this promo. They have to be separated by referees, and Jerry Lynn gets involved as well from the ring crew, the crew team. Come on, Jack. Anyway, they get separated, and then Brian Cage rolls into the ring with Ricky Starks, and they jump Cody from behind while all this commotion has been going on the stage. They beat down Cody for a little bit, but here comes Darby Allin from the stands to make the save. He does so because the jacket that he's wearing has thumbtacks sticking out of it, so he kind of hurls himself at Cage and Starks to get them to go away. Now, I like the idea of that thumbtack jacket, but I think I would have liked to have seen it saved maybe for a pay-per-view or a big showcase angle involving Darby Allin right in the middle of a big Dynamite. But, you know, it was still cool. Team Taz retreat. They head up to the stage as well because Brandy and Cargill have been cleared off by this point. And then Will Hobbs runs down and goes, "Yeah, you better not try anything, Team Taz." And I'm like, Will, where were you, mate? Very, very late to the party. Right, first of all, let me say, because I like this promo, I enjoyed the announcement, I enjoyed the segment generally, I'm giving it a B+, first of all. When I expressed my enjoyment of it on Twitter, a lot of people got very cross at me. So what I'll do is, right, I'll admit, first of all, some of the weaknesses of the promo that I thought could have been improved upon. First of all, yeah, as I mentioned, Jade Cargill, she's not, you know, the most natural promo at the moment. She's got loads of time to improve. She's definitely got a fire about her. And she generally, I think, did a good enough job. But I can see why people may have not enjoyed that aspect of it, because she did ramble on for quite some time. Also, I will admit as well that another weakness of this segment was the fact that it had 3 or 4 different things all just smushed together. You had Cody just coming out and cutting his promo. You had Jade Cargill and her debut on the main sort of Dynamite roster. And you had the Brandy bit, you had the Shaq reveal, and you had the Team Taz involvement right at the end. That's a lot of things all jammed into one promo or one segment. So I do understand that point too. But now let me run down just the big positives and the reasons that I enjoyed this segment. First of all, we had a new character debut in the women's division. I assume she's going to be in the women's division and not just kind of a manager or whatever. She certainly looks like a wrestler. And we had her debuted in a memorable and kind of spotlight heavy way. I think that's a positive for one. Secondly, Brandy's promo was fire. I think that's the best promo she's ever cut. And thirdly, we're getting Cody Rhodes versus Shaquille O'Neal. Or, as many people have pointed out, maybe a mixed tag, Cody and Brandy taking on Shaq and this Jade Cargill wrestler, which I'd also be fine with. It's still a big, weird, novelty celebrity match. And I feel right, how annoyed people got on Twitter because of this announcement really did reveal something to me. I think that, I don't know whether it's this whole having to pick a side between AEW and WWE, or maybe Jim Cornette and people who try and parrot all of his opinions and think he's the gospel on everything. I really don't know what it is, but whenever AEW announce or tease something fun, it's like a whole section of wrestling fans on the internet just can't stand that and they just want to see wrestling all the time. Well, wrestling's about entertainment as well as work rate. You can't have too much of one and not enough of the other. There has to be a balance. And AEW's got loads of tremendous workers, right? But also, they can put on things like this. And I don't really see a problem with it, especially because it's not that nonsensical. Cody's just dropped the belt. He's not really doing anything. Why not use one of your biggest names and put him in a match with a huge icon in the form of Shaquille O'Neal? I don't really see why this is such an offensive decision. A lot of people disagree, and that's fine if you want to disagree, but just not liking it for the sake of not liking it and not wanting AEW to do fun stuff, that to me seems a little bit short-sighted. So I'd be very interested to know your opinions. Leave them in the comment section down below if you want, but maybe don't, because people are going to get very cross at each other. I think people take wrestling a bit too seriously, to be honest. Anyway, we go backstage. Alex Marvez is there with still the AEW World Champion Jon Moxley, and my boy Marvez continues to improve as a backstage interviewer. You love to see it. Bit of sizzle with his introduction to Jon Moxley. I'm enjoying it a lot. Moxley cuts a good little promo. It's not very long, but the gist of this segment is to reveal to us that the big Moxley versus Omega match for the title is going to take place on an episode of Dynamite, December the 2nd, I believe. And I'm like, what is going on? That's pretty huge news. I mean, there's every possibility that we could see a world title change on AEW Dynamite, which would be absolutely huge. Anyway, later on in the night, it happened later on, but I'm putting it now because it's relevant, and it was, again, a small backstage interview segment. Dasha's backstage. She's meant to be interviewing Kenny Omega, but he's done a runner. So they send Marvez, my boy, the MVP of tonight's episode, to chase down Kenny Omega. He gets him in the car park, he's running after him, he's like, Kenny, where are you going? I want to have a word with you, mate. He doesn't quite say it that threateningly. He asks Kenny about this upcoming match with Moxley, and Kenny says, well, I think it's time to reassume my role as the best wrestler in the world. It's time to be New Japan version of Kenny Omega once again. He also says that in straight singles competition, himself and Jon Moxley are 0-0. They've never had a normal singles match before. And obviously, just kayfabe-wise, the advantage there is with Kenny Omega. Right, next up, so we've got so you know how earlier on in the intro, right, I said this show was a bit mad, a bit off the rails. We've got the Bunkhouse Brawl next, in an otherwise, usually, nondescript slot on the show. But instead, out of nowhere, just in the middle of the show, we've got blood, we've got chaos, weapons, randomness, and it all just kicks off. And they squash it all together into like a 10-15 minute match. And I'm just like, where is this show going? The first hour of this show was breakneck speed. So yes, it's the Bunkhouse Brawl. QT and Dustin Rhodes against the Butcher and the Blade. Obviously with the Bunny in their corner. QT marshals out for revenge because the Bunny left him to go back to Blade. You know the score here. Even if that story hasn't been fully fleshed out, or as fully as maybe it should have been, at least we're drawing it to a close here. QT charges down the ramp, leaps over the top rope and jumps on the Blade, and we're off straight away. The bell rings and we've got a brawl immediately. And scattered around the ring, because it's a Bunkhouse Brawl, we've got wooden chairs, hay bales, loads of southern things. We've got a banjo. I don't know if there was a banjo down there, but there is a guitar which the Blade demolishes over QT's head at one point. But despite that guitar shot, Dustin's still up and swinging, and he still manages to kind of grab a little bit of an advantage in the match by picking up a bull rope, which is basically the signature weapon of the Rhodes family, so +5 to attack. I can't argue with those tactics, Dustin. Unfortunately, it doesn't work for him that well because he gets handcuffed to the ropes, and therefore QT is isolated over the other side of the ring. They're driving things into his forehead. The Bunny's getting involved from the outside. He's pouring with blood. This is, again, like, what? Half an hour, 40 minutes into just a standard, what I thought was a standard AEW Dynamite. Dustin gets free of the handcuffs, the baby faces fight back. Dustin takes the Butcher up to the side of the stage and bulldogs him off the stage through a wooden structure that's just part of the set there, and this match is not slowing down. Back in the ring, we have the big face-off between QT and the Blade. Both men, by this point, are busted open. The Blade is pouring with blood. I guess we know why he's called the Blade, because wrestling's a grisly business, man. They exchange big right hands in the middle of the ring. QT wins the exchange. He knocks the Blade down, gets a huge ladder, sets it up. Massive elbow drop off the top of the ladder onto the Blade. 1, 2. The Blade kicks out. And part of me still thinks, even reviewing this show now, that probably should have been the finish. The heels fight their way back into it. The Butcher's somehow still in contention despite being put through that thing at the side of the stage. They hit their double team move, full death, onto Dustin, onto 2 chairs set up like that, and it looks all over. But QT gets in the ring with a trash can lid and breaks up the pinfall at the last second. The Blade gets knocked into the Bunny. She flies off the apron through a table on the outside. It's the old Triple H Stephanie McMahon special at WrestleMania 32, amongst many other examples, of course, throughout the history of professional wrestling. And that leads, by the way, to the babyfaces picking up the win. This gets a B+ grade from me. It was a really fun match. Chaotic, bloody, frenzied. Not the tidiest match, not the best match ever, but certainly entertaining enough for it to warrant, I think, a B+ grade. And once again, I just want to stress, this was in the middle of just a normal TV weekly show, and it feels like it's 1999. I don't know what's going on. Next up, we get a very short Matt Hardy little promo backstage vignette sort of video where he basically says, you know, even though Sammy Guevara had to be deleted and I beat him at Full Gear, it was necessary and he'll come back stronger, and he's got loads of promise. That's nice of Matt, isn't it? Very sporting. Basically, the purpose of this, I think, was just so that AEW can say to us, look, we booked Sammy to lose the match. Please don't give up on him. He's still very, very good. It's just that Matt Hardy needed to win the feud. Next up, we have MJF's official induction into the Inner Circle, and Wardlow's too, I suppose. First of all, Jericho comes out and he brings out the existing Inner Circle, but Sammy's not there. And Jericho's like, where's Sammy? And the rest of the Inner Circle are like, we've been looking all over for him. We can't actually find him. And Jericho's like, well, I rang him after he got out of the hospital after the Matt Hardy match. What's going on? Anyway, they carry on regardless. MJF comes out with Wardlow, and MJF gives a speech about how grateful he is to be in the Inner Circle. He reads out some Drake lyrics and claims them as his own poetry, and Ortiz isn't buying it. He shuts him down, but then Jericho shuts Ortiz down and says, no, listen, right? This is going to work, so can everybody just get along? And MJF tries to smooth things over by saying, we're not just here for my official induction into the Inner Circle. No. We're here to celebrate Chris Jericho's birthday, and from high above, confetti and balloons are released, and the wind just immediately sweeps them away and they go off camera. And even though it's not intentional, makes it funnier, in my opinion. Also worth noting that when MJF said, oh, it's Chris Jericho's birthday celebration, the biggest pop was definitely Jake Hager. In the ring, he's just like, hey, Jake Hager loves birthdays, apparently. That's cute. But MJF closes things with a serious announcement. He says, I have an urgent thing to say. We're all going to Vegas next week, and he's got tickets for everybody. They're all going off to Vegas. There's your skit for next time around. This gets a B+ grade. It was a bit of light storyline advancement. Nothing substantial really changed. Nobody's motivations really changed. Everyone was kind of on the same track as they were before the segment began. But Sammy going missing is interesting, and we get an answer to that later on, as there was an interview segment where Sammy came along and said, why did you send me that email, MJF? You told me to go to the beach. You told me this was happening on the beach. And MJF's like, no, I sent you a second one, correcting myself. I said, sorry, no, it's in the arena, actually. Sammy is like adamant that there was only one email. MJF's like, absolutely not. And they all saunter off. And MJF's really cocky in Sammy's face about this. And Sammy's just livid, everybody. I also got a tweet from someone. Apologies for not remembering your handle. But they said that it looked as though MJF only gave Sammy one ticket, like a one-way ticket to Vegas. So he's going to get stranded in Nevada. And all the rest of them are going to come back. I like that theory. And I quite hope it happens. Marvez, my absolute boy, is killing it this show. He's backstage again to interview the Young Bucks. Obviously, he's scared they're going to super kick him because they turned heel for about 3 weeks that time. Don't know why, and they kicked him. They come out and they apologize for it. They're like, we're not going to kick you. Sorry, man. Sorry, Marvez. Sorry about that whole thing. And then they say, right, now that we're the best tag team in the world, they got it in there immediately, poor FTR. Then they say, right, we're going to give a chance to some up-and-comers who remind us a lot of ourselves. You know, they're cocky, they're high-flying, and they are actual real-life brothers. And so the Bucks announced that next week they will be taking on Top Flight, who honestly I'm not familiar with, but please do let me know in those comments if you know anything about them. Just step around all the comments arguing about Cody versus Shaq and just drop some knowledge in there. That would be nice, please. Next up, we get a match that I think was supposed to happen at Full Gear, Scorpio Sky versus Shawn Spears, but it's happening now, singles action, and obviously Shawn Spears has Tully Blanchard in his corner. They go back and forth a lot in this one. The ring steps get involved. Sky gets vaulted over them, or he leaps over them, jumps back on top, jumps off the top of the ring steps, gets super kicked by Spears, but it kind of only grazes him, but it wobbles him enough that Spears can hit a nice sidewalk slam on the top of the ring steps. But back in the ring, towards the finish of the match, Tully Blanchard leaves a metal slug just to like load Shawn Spears' hand for a big knockout blow. He just leaves that in the corner behind the ref's back. Spears goes over to get it, so Tully comes around the other side of the ring where Scorpio is and leaves another one in there for Sky. And Sky's obviously confused, as am I. He throws it into the stands because he doesn't want to win that way. Turns around, guess who does want to win that way? Shawn Spears, big left hand, Sky's down and out, 1, 2, 3. And that's your match. Very straightforward, this one, with sort of a veteran heelish kind of finish. It gets a B. I've not really got much else to say. I don't really know why he gave Sky the metal slug as well. That confused things slightly, but apart from that, no real issues. B is the grade. Next up, women's division action as Red Velvet takes on Tay Conti, who I forgot actually was affiliated, because I don't watch Dark that often, affiliated with Anna Jay of the Dark Order, but Conti's not really a member of the Dark Order, she's just pals with someone who is. Brandy Rhodes is out with Red Velvet, and Red Velvet really does well in this match. She has the better of the majority of the match, I think. Some slick technical action, a really nice near fall off, kind of a running stunner at one point as well, but she doesn't get the win. Red Velvet runs, and it looks like she hits Conti with like a running kick or a knee or something. Conti falls back against the ropes, but Red Velvet's down and out. I don't know if I just missed the counter or something, or if there was a bit of a miscommunication, but Red Velvet's just flat on her back, and Conti seems fine, even though she looked like she was hit by a move. I may have had that wrong, I don't know. Anna Jay slides a chair into the ring for Tay Conti to use on her opponent, but Conti refuses. She doesn't want to win that way. She gets Red Velvet on her back in like a gory special position, flips her out into a knee strike to the face, and she wins clean by choice. This gets a B- grade. It was good at first, but then that weird bit at the end, I mean, I'll happily take back this grade and boost it up a little bit if I'm proven to be wrong, but I thought that was really weird and did kind of affect my enjoyment of the finish. Otherwise, it's a nice bit of storyline advancement for both Anna Jay and Tay Conti, so I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes. Next up, to introduce the main event, it's Eddie Kingston. He is on the mic at the top of the ramp, and everyone's going, Eddie, Eddie, because we all love him after that effort against Jon Moxley, but he quells the babyface cheers by saying, I know my name, you don't need to chant it at me. He says that at Full Gear, you know what, Moxley made him quit, Moxley was the better man on the night, it's something he's gonna have to live with, but he's never gonna give up, and he will be world champion one day. And then he takes his seat at commentary, and out come Fenix and Penta for their highly anticipated rematch. And there's like a sick opening exchange, man, like both of them are going back and forth, they know each other so well, there's such good chemistry there. And the story of the match really is that basically Eddie Kingston has driven a wedge between the two of them because, well, first of all, he's always going on about how Penta's his best friend. But secondly, because they've kind of unlocked something dark within them and they just want to tear each other apart. They start breaking traditional wrestling kind of etiquette. They start ripping at each other's masks. Penta does it first. Fenix's mask nearly comes completely off. Penta's mask pretty much does come off. Like, you can see both of their faces essentially. And it gives the match something really striking and really significant. Fenix does some crazy stuff as he does, but he won the last one. Penta actually picks up the victory here by just being more vicious and willing to do more horrible things to his brother than his brother is willing to do to him. It's really fantastic storytelling, and obviously the wrestling is top notch as well. Penta hits a package piledriver on the apron, then a destroyer on the outside, and then another package piledriver in the ring. He's dropped Fenix on his head 3 times in a row, and that's enough for the victory. Kingston heads down to the ring to congratulate his best friend on a big victory, and as he's doing so, he just walks past Fenix, just casually nudges him with his foot, kicks Fenix out of the ring, and basically says, "You don't need Fenix, he's kind of dead weight, blah blah blah," goes on like this. And before Kingston can properly corrupt Penta and kind of turn the brothers against each other, PAC's music hits, and he's made his return. PAC storms out like a big Newcastle house on fire and gets on the mic and goes, "Here man! You've been nasty to my mates, haven't you?" Or some words to that effect. You know what PAC's like. He gets in the ring, everyone has to hold them apart, and it's a hyped ending to the show. PAC is back, and I'm really excited. He seems to be a tweener or a face as well. Interesting. As long as they keep the purple cape away from PAC, I will be absolutely fine with any developments from here on out. This final segment gets an A+ from me. The match is an A or an A+. Couldn't quite decide, probably was going to give it an A actually, but then PAC's return nudges this whole thing up a notch to an A+. Wonderful ending to the show. I'm very excited to see PAC back in AEW, as I think most of us are, and I can't wait for a PAC versus Eddie Kingston showdown. Overall, I'm going to give this show a A- grade. It wasn't the cleanest show that we've seen in AEW history. Very ragged around the edges at points, but man, it made a noise. A lot of stuff happened. Let's just run down all the big things that actually happened in, what, 2 hours of television? We had the tease of Cody versus Shaquille O'Neal, or the mixed tag potentially. Moxley versus Kenny announced for a Dynamite in the future, obviously in just a few weeks, December the 2nd. A bloody no-holds-barred brawl that was just slap bang, just in the middle of the show for no reason. The Inner Circle about to head to Vegas to shoot another possibly divisive skit, and obviously at the end, the return of PAC. I mean, all that in one show, and yeah, I can't deny that it, even though it wasn't the best show in AEW history or anything like that, it was one of the most incident-filled, certainly. Anyway, that's it for AEW Dynamite this week. Thank you very much for watching. What did you think of the show? Very interesting stuff. Leave your thoughts and opinions in that comment section down below. Maybe try and be nice to each other if you want. Stay safe out there, stay positive, and I'll see you very soon.